Senior Life Journeys presents Carol Howell's Let's Talk Dementia, a podcast designed to help caregivers find knowledge, power, hope, and smiles in their dementia caregiving journey. Welcome to Let's Talk Dementia. Here is your host, best-selling author, Carol Howell.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Let's Talk Dementia. Today I am very honored to have a guest, and I'd like to welcome Miss Amy Gross-Kehoe. And she is a client of mine, and this is actually the first time of us seeing each other, Amy, and it's good to see you. We've talked a lot, so how are you? How are things going today?
They are good.
Good.
It is such a happy relief that we've now moved past dealing with the dementia, and now we're moving back to getting our lives on order.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about Amy's mom's last days. Right now, Amy is sitting on the front porch of Dad's house, and Dad will be moving to a brand new community in Rock Hill, South Carolina, as soon as it opens, and we're excited about that. And that's a relief for Amy, I believe, as she just said. But Amy, let's
Absolutely.
back up and tell folks a brief history of Mom. And Mom had dementia.
Yes. Well, my parents loved it down here, and they retired down here about 12 years ago. And, when you're old and retired, their ability to make friends was kind of limited. And they made some church friends, made some neighborhood friends, had some friends who they knew because my dad races vintage cars.
Oh.
So they knew some people from town. That's how they picked Rock Hill. But really, that network of friends, most of them were all older as well. And so when my mom started really losing her memory and her ability to communicate effectively and take care of herself, my dad was all by himself dealing with it. So that was hard.
That's tough, yeah. And so how long ago was that, Amy, that you noticed the symptoms?
That was... we say the changes really occurred over the Christmas. We noticed them the Christmas of 2014.
Okay. All right. So we're coming up on 5 years.
She couldn't remember what we were cooking. She couldn't, the simple things. She couldn't remember where things were in the kitchen.
Had she been a good cook previously?
Yeah.
She had been a good cook previously?
Yes,
Oh.
yes. She was always an amazing cook, and Christmas dinner was her shining star.
Yeah.
And then she couldn't remember, that she had to refrigerate the Yorkshire pudding batter. And I was like, "Hey, Mom, let's do this." She's like, "I know, I can't remember anything anymore." So she was starting to get angry because she realized she was forgetting things.
Yeah, it's a tough time of year. Hard. I get more phone calls from caregivers in January than any month of the year because they've gone through Thanksgiving and Christmas and really noticed changes in Mom. So I had a client whose mom said, "I will fix the turkey and you guys fix everything else. Amy's got a cold or something going on, so you just cough whenever you need to." But she said, "I'm going to fix the turkey and you guys fix everything else." And they're like, "Okay." And Mom did. She fixed the turkey. She wrapped it all up and she put it in the oven, and she just failed to turn the oven on. Just a little detail. So, yeah, it can be a problem. Okay, let's fast forward to this year. And this summertime was just not good for your family. Can you share that story?
So starting, I came here to visit her in January for her birthday. Then I came back in June for Father's Day, and I live in Chicago, so it's a hike to come down here. And then came in July, and in July she was a different person. She recognized me, but sometimes when she would talk to me, she would refer to me as Susie, my aunt's name.
Oh, yeah.
So, because, I'm 50, and she's used to me being more like 15.
Right.
So, that was... distressing for me. But when she was nice, it was fine. And then she started to get mean. At times, she would just go off on me and scream at me. Everyone thinks you're a pain in the ass, and you should get out of here. I don't want you in my house. And all sorts of really horrible things she would say to me. And that was in July. And that's
about the time you reached out to me, I think.
Yes. And at that point, we really realized, she needs to go somewhere. My dad can't handle it.
Right.
Because she's asking him all day long, when do we have to pack up and get out of here? When do we have to go back home? And she's like, I need to call my parents and tell them where I am. Well, her parents have been dead for 15 years. So, oh yeah, that's right. They died a while ago. So she would, remember when you reminded her. And then she wasn't eating much. And in July, I made a really nice steak dinner. And she was flipping the fork the wrong way to try to cut the steak.
Oh my.
She was holding the tines and sticking the end of the fork into the meat and then cutting with the knife with the other hand. And the pieces she was cutting, they were so small that she couldn't pick them up. And I said, hey, Mom, it would work better if you did it this way. No, it won't. Leave me alone. Ah. I'm like, Mom, okay.
Okay.
I won't help.
Back
so
off.
we just let her go. And then, fast forward to August, how's Mom doing? Well, she's not so good. She took a 6 a.m. walkabout to one of the neighbors' houses in her nightgown, barefoot, walked over at 6 a.m. on a Sunday, and knocked on the door, set all the alarms off. And fortunately, I've been in touch with the neighbors to tell them what was going on with her.
And Mom and Dad live in a neighborhood that has a lot of trees. It's heavily wooded. I've been there. And that's a little bit scary right there, just the walk around.
It's 1,000 feet to the next neighbor's house.
Yeah.
And you're right, it's wooded very heavily. And so God love my neighbor. She's like, or my mom's neighbor. She said, Miss Barbara, come on in here. We're going to have a cup of tea. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. Barbara says, I'm sorry. I'm late for the party. And may I bring all of these kids and cats inside? So my mom is totally hallucinating that she's with children and cats.
Mm-hmm.
And the neighbor across the street, whose name also happens to be Amy, was like, oh, Barbara, bring them all inside. They're all welcome here. Made my mom a cup of tea. Tried to call my father and said, hoping there wasn't anything wrong with him.
Right.
That would make her leave the house. And he didn't answer the phone. So she was terrified and eventually walked Barbara back, and my father was just getting out of bed, getting some clothes on, and going to look for Barbara.
Yeah.
So that was end of July, beginning of August. And then in September 4th or 5th, my dad calls me and says, Mom can't get up. She's on the floor. First she was on the floor in the bedroom, now she's on the floor in the bathroom, and she just can't get up. She doesn't have the strength to get up. I said, okay, we need to fast forward. And I knew there was a memory care program that said they would take her in the interim until they could get into the one that they're moving to in November. I said, this is the moment. So I called those folks and I said, we need to get Mom in there. She's not able to take care of herself at all. So that Friday when they came to interview her, what they discovered is she couldn't bear weight. She couldn't stand, so she's not eligible for a memory care. She's only really eligible for nursing home. And they said, she's in such bad shape, she really needs to go to the nursing home, or the emergency room.
Yeah.
So they called the ambulance for her. And the ambulance came and packed her up, and in the interim, when the ambulance came, my dad had an anxiety attack. And he started throwing up and shaking, and they called a second ambulance for him. So I got a call from the folks at the memory care in Chicago on Friday afternoon, September 6th, and they said, your parents are both going to the hospital. I said, let me get on a plane. So I got on a plane that night and came here. And that was September 6th. And she was in the hospital. She was basically catatonic. It's the best thing I could say. She never spoke. She never made a sentence. She made noises and such. And she even kind of said my name. She even kind of said Amy. But her eyes weren't focusing. She was just staring into space. and that was September 7th. Her blood pressure, because she wasn't taking her blood pressure medicine, was skyrocketed.
Oh, yeah.
She hadn't taken it in a while, and my dad just couldn't keep track of all of that.
So why do you think Mom was on the floor?
She was completely out of fuel. She was not eating enough. And I sort of attributed it. He was trying to feed her. He was making food. But the disease had taken her hunger instinct.
Mm-hmm. It does.
It had taken her hunger instinct, and she wasn't eating enough calories to have any muscles. She just didn't have any muscles. She literally couldn't stand up because she was too weak.
Yeah, and then Dad wasn't well enough to think, I need to do something to help her.
He wasn't, because he's just like, the men of that generation, this is going to get better. I can handle this.
Right.
I don't need help. Oh, HELP, that's a 4-letter word.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. So he didn't. So they both went into the hospital. They let him out in a day after they pumped him full of fluids because he was really dehydrated and somewhat malnourished because they weren't eating well. He wasn't even eating well, and he was eating. And the hospital kept her for a couple days, and they said, we can't do anything for her. The next thing she needs is a feeding tube. Mm-hmm. But I knew she had a living will. It said no feeding tubes, no resuscitation. Mm-hmm. And I said, let me go back to the house and see what I can find. And sure enough, I found that. I brought it to the hospital. The doctors read through it, and they said, no, we can't do a feeding tube.
Right.
Mm-hmm. She's DNR. And it was hard because last time I had seen her, she was futzing around the house, cleaning things. And
futzing around
the house, moving things from place to place
yes.
so that she could lose them again.
Yes, right. But he gave her something to do.
Yeah, it was her favorite hobby. So, so we went from there to the hospital said, we can't keep her any longer because we are not doing anything for her that requires her being in the hospital.
Yeah.
And Medicare won't pay for it. So they said, we have to discharge her. And I said, whoa, she can't come home. She still can't walk. She's not speaking. Mm-mm. She can't feed herself. So we quickly drove around town and looked at a couple of nursing homes and found one we really liked, thank goodness, in the second try. And that afternoon she was in the nursing home. And that was Wednesday, trying to count my days, Wednesday after Friday the 6th of September. So she went in the nursing home. They tried to get her to eat and drink, and she wasn't hungry. And she wasn't thirsty. She just sat in bed for many days until the 16th, when her body finally gave out.
And she passed.
And she died in the nursing home. And, it's hard because you just don't want anything to end that way, but she was surrounded. Mm-hmm. Woo!
Yeah. I think when you think about your story, you still have a lot of really good things there. Don't you think? I'm afraid I lost Amy. Amy, are you still there? Uh-oh, we lost our connection. Well, Amy's going to try to figure out her connection there. But Amy's story is poignant in that they had a lot of difficulties. A lot of situations come up that they never in a million years would have expected. But they handled them, and I was glad to be a part to help them with that. And they did a good job taking care of Mom in those last days and dealing with what life had to offer. And sometimes it's just not what we want. But Amy, thank you for joining us on our show. Be sure and write me if you have any questions. And I would love to interview you. And we can do Skype, or we can talk, or however. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today for Carol Howell's Let's Talk Dementia. To learn more about dementia, we recommend Carol's best-selling book, also titled Let's Talk Dementia. It's available on Amazon in paperback and Kindle versions. Be sure to like Let's Talk Dementia on Facebook and leave us a kind word of review on iTunes. Remember, knowledge brings power. Power brings hope. Hope brings smiles. And we all need more smiles. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll be right here when you come back to Let's Talk Dementia.